Yeah, we got to share. Uh, Thank you. Notice is hereby given that the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Islip will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 11, 2023, at the Town Hall West, 401 Main Street, Islip, on the following applications at the times listed or as soon thereafter as they may be reached. At such time, all interested parties will be given an opportunity to be heard. Application number 256-23, Carrie Insardi. Permission to leave, one-story addition, 7.1 by 9.8, having side yard of 12 feet instead of required 14 feet. Residence A District, south side of Brook Street, 300 feet east of Academy Lane, Oakdale.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Richard Trepkowski. I'm the agent for the applicant who's with me also. My address is 173 North Main Street, Sable, New York.
Hi, Carrie Ansardi, 226 Brook Street, Oakdale.
Is this simply for the side yard variance here?
Yes.
Yeah. The request is for a side yard setback of 12 feet instead of 14 feet. This was done by a previous owner and is a covered cellar entryway. The house originally built is only 7 feet from the side yard line, and as per the Google Earth photos, which I have if you'd like them, it appears to conform to the neighborhood. It does not impose any adverse impacts to the current situation. 12 feet versus 14 feet even would be a minimum and reasonable request.
Is anyone else who would like to be heard on this application?
Make a motion to approve the application.
All in favor? And application's been granted.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Application number 173-23, Peter Hibbert Jr. Permission to leave shed, 8.3 by 16.2, having rear yard of 0.6 feet instead of required 4 feet. Residence A District, east side of Gladstone Avenue, 230 feet north of Lewis Place, West Islip.
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, I'm here because I live at 30.
Mr. Hibbert, if you could
I'm
please
sorry.
give your name and address.
My name is Peter Hibbert Jr. and I'm at 31 Gladstone, West Islip, New York. I'm here because I was told that I need to leave. I would need to move the shed a couple of inches, but I was wondering if it's possible to just leave it as is because when I bought the home, that's where it was at.
When did you buy the home?
July of 2021. Yes. Yes, sir.
Thanking gentlemen, since he does work with the person. Waiting for my man.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this application? Take a motion.
I'll make a motion to grant the application.
Second.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, your application's been granted.
All right, thank you. Is that all?
That's it.
Thank you.
Application number 257-23, John Eshalanda Mazza. Permission to leave shed, having second front yard of 16 feet instead of required 27 feet. Residence A District, southeast corner of Lee Street and Lawrence Avenue, Hop Hop.
Hello, my name's John Mazza. This is Shalonda Mazza. We live at 10 Lee Street, Hop Hop, New York. So we got a new survey, and when we had the new survey, they identified that the shed was too far out into the side frontage. My neighbor Mike is here, and we had moved the fence back when they had asked us, but the shed was never flagged, and so now that we're asked to move the shed back, we're asking that it would be great if we could keep it in the same spot. There's no, as far as the sight line goes, it's not obstructing any of the driveways. And I don't know if there were pictures taken by the inspectors, and we sent some too, just so you can get an idea of what this looks like behind the fence. But it doesn't really obstruct any views, and I think it conforms with the look of the neighborhood.
When was the shed put there?
Well, there was a shed in the same footprint when we bought it, and it was a metal shed, and we took that down and we put that up in 15, 16.
Because of our house being a corner lot, it's kind of difficult to put the shed anywhere else in the backyard. The direct backyard is very narrow, and this is really the best location for it.
Yeah, since we don't have a garage, so if we want to, shovel the snow or get to the snow blower, the best way from the egress is going straight to the shed. So on the side yard, it'd be difficult to get to it.
It's behind that fence, which you've moved.
Yes.
Yes, we moved. Yeah, that was the original fence, and we were asked to move that back, and that's the way it was when we bought the house, and then we set that back.
We have more current pictures if you'd like. I can show them to. We also sent them to the yes, sir. That's the more current. Yes.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard on this application?
Yes, I'm the next door neighbor, Mike Capicello. I live on 131 Lawrence Avenue, Hopewell. Cappisillo. And I have no objection. I mean, the shed that they were talking about that used to be there was an old rusty thing when they moved in. And this one is white and the fence is white. You really can't notice it. So to me, it makes no difference. I have no objections.
I'm looking at it, it's pretty small inside, it's one of those vinyl numbers. It's probably, like 7 feet high.
Yes.
All right, David? No. Anyone else like to be heard on the application?
I'd make a motion to approve the application.
All in favor? Application's been granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Application number 181-23, adjourned from March 14, 2023. Eric and Alyssa Caminati. Permission to leave patio having side yard of 2.1 feet instead of required 4 feet, and driveway having front yard occupancy of 69% instead of permitted 40%. Residence A District, west side of Patricia Avenue, 1,125 feet south of Celia Street, West Islip. Oh, boy. Second call.
Second call.
Application number 258-23. Jacqueline Collar and Adolfo Collar Colin-Minares. Oh, there she is. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-602. To install egress window leaving side yard of 10.13 feet instead of permitted encroachment setback of 11 feet. To leave recreational accessory building when accessory buildings are prohibited from being used for habitable purposes. Leaving a rear yard of 2.4 feet instead of required 4 feet, all having floor area ratio of 29.35% instead of permitted 25%. To leave shed having 7.5 feet behind the front line of the dwelling instead of required 20 feet, patio having rear yard of 2.25 feet instead of required 4 feet, and driveway on side property line and having side yard of 1 foot instead of required 4 feet each, and front yard occupancy of 82.6% instead of permitted 40%. Residence B District, northeast corner of Saxon Avenue and Orleans Street, Bay Shore.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services with offices at 1040 Terry Road, Ronkonkoma, New York. So I just wanted to give a little bit of history on the site before I go through the variances, just so that you can see what we're looking at here. So this is an overall aerial of the house. Outlined in blue is the property. Right adjacent to the property, there's a vacant piece of land. Both of these parcels, at some point between the 50s and the 90s, were owned by the same family and were actually used together as one parcel. It then transferred ownership to another family who also enjoyed both lots as one, until the second vacant lot was then, looks like it was foreclosed on. For some reason, these lots were never actually merged. They were always separate, but the owners of this particular property have always used them together as one. So that brings me now to each variance. The first one would be the accessory apartment. We have a 524 square foot apartment. The dwelling is owner occupied, and the driveway, although we are seeking variances for it, has been approved by engineering. The next item is the egress window wells, where they're located in the side. It has a side yard of 10.13 instead of the permitted encroachment of 11 feet. So we're just shy a couple of inches. And the egress window is being utilized as a means of egress for the proposed accessory apartment. The next item is the FAR. We are requesting 29.35 instead of the permitted 25. The increased FAR is due to the basement being legalized as an accessory apartment, and it also includes the detached garage, which is now finished space. That brings us to the detached garage, which we're here for two separate variances. The first is a rear yard of 2.4 feet instead of the 4 feet that are permitted. This is the exact detached garage that appears on the CO. The detached garage remains the same dimensions, same setbacks as it has always existed. The reason that the setbacks have to be added to the call of the meeting is because the use of the building has changed. And then here we have something that's a little bit newer, that the board hasn't really seen before. So it's finished space being used as recreation. There was a recent code amendment change to the accessory structures. And what happened was that the definition of habitable space was actually changed. So habitable space used to be sleeping, living, eating, cooking. It now includes the word recreation. So because of that change in the code, we now have to come before the board based on the use of finished space for recreation. However, I think it's important to note that when we filed all of our applications, this code amendment had not taken effect yet. The code amendment had taken effect on March 14th of this year, and we have filed all of our applications well before then. So the client had to apply for several different permits. The permit for the actual detached garage, which is listed on our compliance permit application, was filed in late December and processed in the first week of January. We also filed for our zoning board hearing first week of January. We have a receipt dated January 6th. However, we did have the denial amended to include this new wording, which was updated on February 14th. Again, still prior to the code amendment change in March. Also on this variance request is for a patio, which is a rear yard of 2.25 feet instead of the required 4. We have a shed. It's a small shed, 8 by 12. It's behind their fence on the side of their property, but it's not 20 feet behind the front line of their dwelling. And then we have front yard occupancy, 82.6 instead of 40. I would like to again point out the aerial of the neighborhood here. It's very mixed industrial, mixed residential. Saxon Avenue, I'm sure you've all traveled on it. It's a very busy road, so it's a little bit different than the usual 40, 42, 43% that we would normally see because they have enlarged a U-shaped driveway to make it a little bit more safer for the occupants to get in and out of their property. And then we have the other side of the driveway, which is it's too close to the property line. It's 1 foot instead of 4 on one side and on the actual property line on the other.
What was the recreational use that was being done in the garage?
So right now it's being used as finished storage. I do have a photo of the interior showing that. However, the building department has said, so I spoke to them again today. I spoke to Dan in the zoning department to kind of distinguish finished space for storage, finished space for recreation. As far as zoning is concerned, if he were to change the wording from finished space to storage, zoning doesn't really have a problem with it. He said it's more the plans examiner that has an issue with heated or conditioned finished space for storage. So we decided to leave the wording as recreation, but the actual purpose right now is because they're turning their basement into an apartment, they don't have any more storage. They're using this detached garage as storage. Yeah.
What's our, 42.5 is our, 42.
Well, we do have some on major roads where we've had on Fifth Avenue and Islip Avenue where we have gone above 50%. I think there was one on Islip that I received at about 56%.
But those are exceptional.
Very similar to this one on a major road, mixed industrial, mixed residential use.
If it's a 1 lane road each way, I mean, we're dealing with much.
From the picture, it looks like you got such a driveway,
So the driveway, let's see. So the U shape has been there since about 2004. What he did was he kind of enlarged it on, if you're facing the house, the left side. But the right side of the driveway was always there because the cars went directly to the detached garage in the rear. And then they had a smaller U, and they enlarged on the left side as well. So I could speak to them about possibly reducing back that left side and bringing it down a little bit. If we could do something similar to what we've seen on Fifth Avenue, Islip Avenue, between the 50 and 60%.
Everybody on Saxon Avenue, they come up and say it's a very busy road, or go to something 1 lane each way. And you have to rent every single, you say no.
It's a pretty well-traveled road. I mean,
I know, but I'm saying you have to rent every single home.
well, not, it would be just on busy roads, so we wouldn't request something like
So it
that
would
on
be
a
everybody
normal
on
side
Saxon.
street. It would
everybody
be,
on Saxon. You don't have the extraordinary circumstances. of fire that you all know what we're talking about. Those were much more, it's just a road. And I don't see what the huge deal is. It's, they come out and make a right. But the other one, they had intersections, they had 2 lanes each way, and it was rounded curve. That's usually what it is, they're on a curve. what it's called. This is just Saxon Avenue.
okay.
And we'd be giving 42%, so they only have to cut it in half.
I'm sure the clients would be willing to reduce their driveway. Maybe. No, you get a ticket for that, Mr. Sullivan.
Good evening, Mr. Singh. Anthony Singh. The next door lot and the vacant lot. There's a vacant lot, Orleans and corner of the Orleans and Saxon.
Yes.
Yes. The 50 by 100.
Oh, we have an objection because, the people like, they're renting that, shed. They,
The garage, they say they're using as a storage. It's not a storage. There's somebody living, it's a renting, and there's the air condition. And there no used to be no window, no door that side to my property. Because I know this property very well because I want to buy that house before the people buy. So there was no door, there was no window. Now they have a window, they have a garage, a door, I mean they're renting there, and if somebody lives there and the air conditioner is there, and it is just like 2 feet away. And they move the fence to take off my property. They're using my property now.
the door is actually
When
on
you,
my property.
when you say that there are people living there,
Yes.
what is it that you see that leads you
Because I
they
just
put-
come from there.
They put
I
a
know,
door and a window and an air conditioner.
to believe? And do you see people coming?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
And how long have you seen that?
I see that like a couple months ago, and then now today I see it again.
And how many people,
I see about 2 people there.
the same two people?
Yes.
You don't live on that lot.
No, there's
No, we
a
don't.
vacant lot. I don't build it yet.
So, I mean, we're trying to find out, do you hang out at the vacant lot? I mean, what?
No.
how-
We just go there
Hey.
sometimes.
I just come to and take a look there because
We
I don't
have
want any
to-
trespassing or garbage people through there. So I have to keep clean and I have to cut the grass.
Okay.
Well, they're here to, regarding the inspection, and I think the applicant has photos of the interior. Regarding the inspection, they're here to convert it. So we're really not hearing anything that we didn't know already. Correct.
No.
At one point, it was used for habitable space. They're attempting to restore it to a use permitted by the zoning code.
Which is,
Recreation.
Correct.
and what is, I'm sorry, I don't know, what is recreation? What can you do in recreation? How do you recreate in that?
She'll recap it. She presented it already, but if the applicant, if the neighbors are done, then
Is there
They
anything
have
else you'd
no
like to say?
doors.
Sorry.
Yeah, before they don't have no doors. Now
No
they
doors,
put
no
a door
window. They
to next
put
to
it
my
on
property.
my-
One at a time, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, there was no door before. Just was the garage there. Now they have the door and they have a window, have the air conditioning unit there.
And you're talking about on the garage there?
On the
door
garage,
and a window.
yes. Yeah, I don't want that next to my property. I don't concern the other, but how they're doing that, they're doing that's their business. But my business is next to my property. It's very close, like 2 feet away.
Okay.
They have to use my property to go out from the door.
Yeah, I have pictures. Yeah. And they make the driveway.
They extended the driveway.
No, that's not.
it's not over. It's sort of scheme.
Survey.
Yeah, they have to get the survey done properly because they're using my property.
I don't see.
This is the property right here. That's his name.
Right.
So
That's what Oh, no, that, I think that's what superimposed.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's.
Yes, the door is by my side and the window. It's not on the front or their side.
Okay.
Front side has just the door, garage door. It looks like a garage, but it's not a garage, it's an apartment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard on this application? Sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can we hear from planning? I never got the definition of recreation or.
Yes, which they have a permit for.
how do we know this is not just going to come out of it? We don't know. But my question is, presents the issue, we have testimony that people are living with air conditioning, same two people coming in and out in several months. So let's just credit that. And now they want to put air conditioning, and who puts air conditioning in store?
The air conditioning is already permitted?
So the permit is applied for, it won't be issued until after this hearing. It's on all of the plans. Plans examiners have addressed it as well. The garage is fairly small. It's 22 by 14. And I do have pictures of the interior. I have been personally on this site at least 2 or 3 times this past month alone. We've had engineers on site, architects on site. The building inspector has been there 2 or 3 times. There is no one living in the detached garage. I do have photos of the interior. Basically, everything that was in the basement is now in the detached garage. There are
you
no
saying that
active complaints.
There was never anybody living there, and these people just were imagining it?
Well, I wasn't there prior, so I don't know
Well,
what
what
was
did the
going
client
on prior.
What did the client say? Did they say, yeah, we have some tenants there?
Honestly, it didn't come up because there were no active complaints. There's no code enforcement involvement. The reason that this is coming up is because they had an issue with their basement. They were digging out the basement to make the ceiling height adequate for the apartment. And that's where the building department became involved. And then once we're on site, we legalize everything across the board. So we noticed that the detached garage was finished space. We added that to
We
a
have to
compliance
take some
permit.
sort of work. We have 2 people come and tell us this is what we've seen, and they explain exactly what they're seeing. What are we supposed to do?
I have no problem with a building inspector or a code enforcement investigator coming to the house to verify that
I
there
know,
is no
but-
one living there.
I'm following up on what our secretary. She said, you're gonna see what we already know. My concern is, how do we know we're not just setting it up to have outdoor space? It wouldn't be a huge leap, if that's what they were doing before. And now they want air conditioning. I still don't know who air conditioning storage is. I've never heard of that.
Well, it's recreation space, not storage.
And what are they going to do there? I'm still trying to find out. What are they going to do for recreation?
What's a long-term plan for
What do you-
construction?
Recreation.
As of right now, they want to use it for finished storage. However, the plans examiners don't want to legalize finished storage with those things in them. So it's going to be the wording, it's all a
No,
play
it's not
on
the
words.
wording. It's the wording. The question is, are they using it for recreation or using it for storage?
Right now, it's being used as storage,
Well, what are their future plans?
most likely storage, because they're
But who
building out their
air-conditions storage?
basement.
Who air conditioned storage?
I mean,
But Billy, if it's recreational, say they're doing woodwork, something of that nature, so they're not living there. I can see why somebody would refrigerate it.
I can understand that, but we're not getting a clear indication.
Well,
of what-
I mean, you're not going to use this as a living space, that's going to be prohibited.
absolutely not, and it can be a condition on the decision.
I mean, all we can do is code enforcement comes down and enforces it, but
That
you
makes,
want to use it for recreational purpose, I can see that, you have a shed or a garage, somebody puts a work table in there and they do what they do. So,
Absolutely. It is absolutely not going to be used as living space.
So how many, the bathroom and the sink, and that's it?
All of that's been removed. The only thing that remains is the sink and the toilet.
I was thinking, doesn't that make it
Two
recreation?
pieces.
No, they want them to remove everything.
Can you explain the difference as you see it between this and a cabana?
Honestly, really, there is no difference between this and a cabana or somebody having a pool house or having like an indoor barbecue, a sink, a bathroom, in adjacent use to their backyard. It's really the same exact thing that we're looking at here. They're going to be held to the same exact standards.
Except for that this will come back every 3 years to renew the accessory apartment,
Exactly.
should the board grant it.
Yes, so the board will have the opportunity, if there are complaints, in the meantime, they will have the opportunity to rehear this every 3 years. However, like I stated, there are no active complaints. Code enforcement has not been on this property at all.
Then going over to the front yard occupancy, 42% is acceptable to you guys?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll take a motion on to modify to approve it with 42%. This is please.
On the condition that it not be used for habitable purposes, only for recreation. And recreation isn't sleeping.
Note that in the decision.
Yes,
Yes.
but the new code included that wording inhabitable, so it's a little bit
Habitable, but inhabitable.
No, it's recreation.
habitable, but it's recreation. So habitable used to be just living, sleeping, eating, cooking. They now added the word recreation to it, but this was filed before that change.
When the approval is
Yes.
filed, they approve it.
All right? So
Yep.
that's-
No, it's fine.
It's fine.
On condition that it be used for recreation.
Recreation only, yes. No one
I'll
is living
second
there.
that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, the modified application has been granted.
Thank you.
Okay, she's here on the next one. Application number 259-23, Thomas Molinari. Permission to establish two-family, family use only pursuant to 68-419.1 to leave window wells in non-conforming rear yard, in-ground pool with water feature having side yard of 1.3 feet instead of required 10 feet, pool patio having side yard of 3 feet and 1 foot instead of required 6 feet each, and front yard of 2.6 feet instead of required 25 feet. Roofed over porch having rear yard of 10.3 feet instead of required 25 feet. Driveway having front yard occupancy of 48% instead of permitted 40%, and side yard of 0.4 feet instead of required 4 feet. 6-foot fence on front property line not having required setback of 15 feet. Shed having 7.6 feet in front of the dwelling instead of required 20 feet behind the front line of the dwelling. And rear yard landscaping of 16.2% instead of the permitted 40%. Residence B District, southwest corner of Seymour Avenue and Madison Street, East Islip.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services, with offices at 1040 Terry Road, Ronkonkoma, New York. I'm going to just give a little bit of a history on this site as well. Tonight's the night of unique applications. So if you take a look at the aerial, we have the house is outlined in blue. That's along Seymour Avenue. So that whole long strip in 1967 by way of the Board of Appeals was actually divided into two plots. This was a time when the builders were able to choose which side they wanted to be the front or the rear. So in that case, it was case number Board of Appeals, case 330, held on July 27th, 1967. The old surveys showed Madison Avenue as the front of the property, Seymour as the second front, and then the other side as the rear. So when we look at these variance applications, they seem to be substantial, but I think it was because of the configuring of the property at the time that they were CO'd. So the first variance that we have is the roof over front porch. That is basically the same footprint of the house. It has it as having a rear yard of 10 feet, but that's what the entire dwelling has. It has a rear yard of 10 feet because of the configuration of the house and what they're labeling as rear versus when it was built, they were considering that a side yard. Then we have the window wells, which is again in that rear yard that we're looking at. And this is a window well for as being utilized as a means of egress for the bedroom in the apartment. We are establishing a two-family, family use only permit. This is by way of medical reasoning. Birth certificates and medical documentation have been provided. We're also looking at a 6-foot fence. The 6-foot fence is on the Seymour side of the property. The lot, again, it's substandard. It was established that way in the original Board of Appeals decision. It's less than the 11,250 square feet. It comes in at only 6,800. And where the fence is actually located, there's an additional 15 feet of landscaping and lawn, and there's actually utility poles. So it actually can't be used for parking or anything like that. So it does maintain a 15-foot buffer from the asphalt in the street. We also have a shed. It's 7.6 feet in front of the dwelling instead of required 20 feet behind the front line. Again, this is in the southerly most portion of the property, and it's reading front of the dwelling because of the original configuration of the house. It is a very small shed. It's only 6 by 8. We have rear yard landscaping, 16.2% instead of the permitted 40. The driveway, front yard occupancy of 48% instead of the permitted 40%. Side yard of 0.4 instead of required 4 feet. Again, we have the driveway looking at the top of the property where Madison Avenue is. That portion of the property is only 50 feet in width instead of the 75, which would typically be required. So although the front yard occupancy seems higher, most of the actual front of the house on Seymour is all lawn. There's just a small concrete walkway to their door. And then we have what actually started this whole application, which is the in-ground pool with the water feature and the pool patio. So the pool itself maintains all of the required setbacks. The variance here is mainly for the water feature, which has a side yard of 1.3 feet instead of 10 feet. And then the pool patio requires side and rear yard variances. And I did send up a picture of the water feature so that you could see it. And of the front of the house and the driveway so that you could see that the entire front of the house is all lawn. It's just the driveway's on the side, which is technically the front.
Instead of required minimum of 40. Does it not say that?
Sounds like it's right. So how do they get it to 40%?
Well, I think the problem is that they're calling this the rear yard landscaping is that small strip of 10 feet on the side there, on the side of the house, which is why the number is so high. I have a survey here which might be a little bit more useful to show what we're looking at. These are the original surveys that show the configuration of the house. So Madison is what they were considering front. Seymour is the second front, and then you can actually see the configuration of the dwellings.
So in 1967, the zoning board of appeals approved the location of this house in this location. And as the board is aware, back at that time, the person who was building the house was allowed to establish the rear of whatever side of the property they wanted. So they allowed the builder to consider this house as fronting the North Street, Madison. They allowed it to have a second front yard of 15 feet from Seymour, which is obviously the long side. They allowed them to consider the rear yard as what's south of the home in the aerial photograph where now a pool has been constructed. And they allowed the builder to consider the west side of the house as the side yard. And at that time in Residence B zoning, you only needed 10 feet. So as a result, the rear yard today, because of a late 1980s memo from the town attorney's office, must be behind the front. And also today, the front must be where the house faces and where the address is. So now zoning is kind of trying to get the square peg in the round hole created by this 1967 decision. The front yard is only 15 feet in depth. It's the second front yard from 1967. the rear yard is only 10 feet in depth. So as a result, rear yard landscaping is supposed to be 40% of a very, very small area.
Did the 1967, did they have a 40% code?
Oh, God, no.
No.
I get it. They granted, they built it, then the town superimposes the 40%.
Yeah, some,
And they have to
yes,
apply.
20 or 30 years later, the town realized that lots like this were a problem, right? Look at it. I mean, it's 50 foot, it's really a
They
50-foot
didn't
wide
figure
lot.
that out in 1967, that
Not in 67, Dick Shire wasn't on the board yet.
They waited for me to try and figure this out.
Yeah,
were you born in 1967?
I was not.
I was
So,
one.
that must be-
Yeah, you shouldn't even ask that, but I wasn't.
When was the pool built?
The pool was built, I believe, in 21. That's how this all started. They applied for a building permit to install the pool, and then when the final survey was submitted after the installation, all of this came up.
But the pool's in compliance, it's the patio and the.
And the waterfall,
the waterfall.
yes.
And the total square footage is under the 11,250.
Yes, it's only 6,800.
I think that's the only variance the board granted, actually, was lot area, because they
Yes.
considered this a lot that had over 100 foot of frontage. But yet they let the house face the other street.
The other way.
Anyone else who'd like to be heard on this application? Are we willing to discuss it in the second or before we- Yeah. Can we, on the front yard occupancy, can we reduce that to 42?
For the driveway? Yes.
So we'll make a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
So modified applications. failed.
Great, thank you. Have a good night.
Application number 260-23, Frank and Paula Catone. Permission to leave in-ground pool having side yard of 13.3 feet instead of required 14 feet. Pool barrier fence 2.3 feet from outside of pool instead of required 4 feet. 6-foot fence having second front yard of 3 feet instead of required 10 feet. 6-foot fence on front property line not having required setback of 15 feet. Shed having front yard of 4.1 feet instead of required 27 feet, not having 20 feet behind the front line of the dwelling. And shed having front yard of 15.4 feet instead of required 27 feet. Driveway having front yard occupancy of 42.1% instead of permitted 40%. Retaining wall on front property line and rear yard of 1.2 feet instead of required 4 feet each. An air condenser in front yard of dwelling not having required setback of 4 feet behind the front line of the dwelling. Residence A dwelling district, northwest corner of Hanson Place and Calvert Avenue, Ronkonkoma.
Hi, how are you? I'm Paula Catone. This is my husband, Frank Catone, and we live at 149 Hanson Place in Ronkonkoma, and my husband will go through the list.
Permission to leave in-ground pool having side yard of 13.3 instead of 14. Just keep bringing down the whole list.
No, you don't have to read, yeah.
Okay.
When was that pool built?
21.
By you?
No, it was installed by Gunright Pools.
I mean.
Oh,
he was
yes,
the
by
owner.
me, yes.
Okay, so it's not the
12,100. 12,100. 12,800. Sorry. Yeah, it's behind. It's behind those bushes. See where that chain link fence is? Yeah, it's, yeah. That's a chain link, but now we have a 6-foot fence, a PVC fence is there now.
Yes.
Yes.
May I say why we added a fence there? We have 5 daughters, and unfortunately, when people walk, people were able to see right through, especially when we didn't have the bloom season with the bushes. And I had no privacy with my daughters as they play. I would have weird people walking, and they had full access to my yard because it's such a steep hill. So we added the PVC. The other, what's that called? The other fence, it's still there, but I wanted a little bit more privacy due to my daughters, and like you could see right to my property. So we added that for some privacy.
So that's 10 years ago or 11 years ago, that photo. Is that vegetation still there?
No.
Okay. So we're really just looking at this to understand the slope.
Yeah, yeah. No
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, because as
In-
people
in
walk
that
their
picture,
dogs,
you could see the slope in
it's-
one of
you
those
can see
pictures.
right to my yard. So even though those shrubs are there, but when it's not, when the winter, even in the fall, and early spring, you got full access to see right down to my property with my girls playing, and that's where, you know, we usually hang out too.
Kids still play hopscotch.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right in decision to the great elevation that move right into the property. So we can distinguish.
That's, I mean, it's. So in the photos, it looks like the vegetation is still there between your fence and Calvert Avenue.
Yes.
Okay.
Is anyone else here that would like to speak on this application?
And the point of the part of the fence that in the primary front that touches the front property line, is that only at the one point? And it's really a divider between you and your neighbor in the other direction? Because there's a primary, I don't even see it anymore. Oh, that's 2012.
Yeah, there's a fence that follows that line.
And is that yours or your neighbor's?
That's mine.
Okay, so so the call of the meeting indicates that that's the primary front, so it needs to have 15 feet, but it's only at that one point where it's perpendicular to the front property line, right? Typically, it cascades down from 15 to 4.
Oh,
You like that? The concern would be the neighbor's driveway in the other direction, whether they can see around it when they back out.
Yeah, I'm Ron Conkman. I would make an application that we would approve the application with the caveat that it's being approved in part because of the sloping condition at the property.
I'll second that. That's the.
All in favor? Right, okay, so the cascading application has been great. Really good.
Cascade.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I like the way we used cascades. Application number 261-23, Shahir Tareen. Permission to erect one-story addition, 5 by 9.5, leaving front yard of 20.8 feet instead of required 25 feet, resulting in floor area ratio of 28.7% instead of permitted 25%. Residence B District, south side of 21st Street, 259 feet east of MK Street, Bay Shore.
Good evening, Christine Fay, Accurate Expediting, 286A, Belmont Avenue, West Babylon, New York. So, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My clients would like to ask permission from the board for a variance relief for front yard setback that was previously granted November 29th, 2022, at a similar calculation. What happened was the original survey did not have the front yard setback on it, and when calculating the request, a mistake was made, also affecting the FAR. So the new survey indicates the correct front yard setback, that's why we're back here, and it's for a one-story entryway vestibule. We feel the variance sought is not substantial. It would not cause any adverse effect on the surrounding neighbors. Although the hardship is self-created, we feel it is not substantial. We would like the board to consider granting this application.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard on this application? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Application number 262-23, Jose and Gladys Maldonado. Permission to leave second-story roofed-over deck resulting in floor area ratio of 33.4% instead of permitted 25%. Shed having second front yard of 2.3 feet instead of required 4 feet. I'm sorry, that was side yard of 2.3 feet instead of required 4 feet. Shed having second front yard of 6.9 feet instead of required 20 feet, and rear yard of 1.9 feet instead of required 2 feet, and patio and driveway on side property line not having required setback of 4 feet. Residence B District, southeast corner of Twin Lawns Avenue and Ayler Street, Brentwood.
Good afternoon. My name is Fabian Maldonado, son of Gladys Maldonado. We reside at 153 Twin Lawns. We purchased a home in '07. We haven't done anything besides the way we bought it, so everything is pretty much done by the previous owners.
And all the structures that are there now were there when you brought it in '07?
Yes, sir.
How do we get this to down to 30%? Okay, well, that's that.
Right now, you're requesting 33.4,
Okay,
and that's a bad precedent for us to grant something that high.
okay. What is it,
30% is what we,
30? So the deck is a little too big,
Not exactly, it's the roof.
the roof over.
It's double counted for the underneath and the top.
Yes.
which is the 3%. How many? 240, 240.
So 100 on each level. So because it's double counted, it would be 100 square feet off the awning would result in a 30% FAR. roughly? So this house obviously it has mostly legacy FAR. I'm not sure of the year it was constructed, but let's say it was 1970. We were far from adopting FAR, which didn't happen in Residence B zoning until 1987. So upon construction, and I'm not sure if the detached accessory structure was there, but that doesn't count in FAR. So upon construction, the house already exceeded 25% FAR. A second-story deck would not contribute, but for the roof over it, and once the roof over it, we count two levels. We count the second-story deck, and then we count the area beneath it, which is a patio. You use the area underneath the deck?
I mean, not as much, but I mean, we kind of just put stuff underneath it just for safety, even about 40%.
Is anyone else would like to be heard on this application? No? You're okay then if we grant you 30% and then you'll reduce it?
Yeah, so how do we go about it? Just
Yeah, that's up to you.
Yeah. We'll
Okay.
figure out how to reduce it and then someone will come out and inspect.
okay,
You can contact DJ Planning,
okay,
and she can give you some suggestions how to make it.
okay. All right, we'll definitely do that then. Do we come back and speak to you at a later time? Or?
No?
Okay, all right.
You have a card?
Please, thank you.
Take a motion then? All in favor?
Aye.
So the application is granted,
All right.
reducing it to 30%.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
That's it. Yeah, so this isn't okay. You know what procedure we have? They said the elected procedure and then have when we have our October. Yeah, he tried. He just wanted to be out. Application number 263-23, Belwinder Jaswal and Colwinder Jaswal. Permission to leave in-ground pool having side yard of 13.9 feet and rear yard of 11.6 feet instead of required 18 feet each, and pool patio on rear property line not having required 6 feet. Rear yard landscaping of 38.65% instead of permitted 40%, and driveway having front yard occupancy of 46.64% instead of permitted 40%. Residence AA District, west side of Trailblazer Court, 687.47 feet north of Furrows Road, Holbrook.
Morning, afternoon, sorry. Brian Butler and Associates Attorneys at Law for Mr. Belwinder, Mrs. Belwinder, Jaswal.
It's not.
We had previously appeared before the board and did obtain a variance for the side yard of the 13.9 feet. So we're just looking for the rear yard setback of 11.6 feet. Unfortunately, this was a pool contractor's mistake, placing it in the wrong location, the rear of it.
That's a pretty large mistake, I mean, he's not 3 inches, 6 inches per foot. But it is,
The issue prior was behind the property. You can see is open space. There was no fencing. And it's a pie-shaped lot, so I guess whoever, I don't believe they had the architect, I'm sorry, the surveyor put the stakes out. So the pool was placed where it was. With regards to the 6 feet, the patio, once again, there's open space behind this. This is a community that was developed on this cul-de-sac, and they're very small lots, only 0.26 acres with these large houses. So the yards are a little bit smaller, and the open space is owned by the association in this neighborhood, and they're not complaining about it because most of the people in this neighborhood along that open space use that space as if it's their own. With regards to
Who actually owns the open space?
Excuse me?
Who actually owns the open space? The county, the state, or?
No, the association that this house is in. the Alexandria Association. The permitted, with the landscaping, permitted, we're asking for 38.65. Legal is 40%. It's a minimal amount. We're asking for that relief. And with regards to the front driveway, the driveway was there when he purchased the home. Nothing was changed with regards to the curb cut. I believe the percentage was added because they connected the driveway to the sidewalk on the side of the house. So it exceeds the 40% by 6%. We're asking for these reliefs. Excuse me? I believe the driveway was extended to connect to the walkway. You can.
They flared it out a little more. They didn't adjust the apron.
Yes.
So what the front yard occupancy restriction doesn't take into account is pie-shaped lots.
Correct.
So pie-shaped lots are permitted in the zoning code in that the width of the lot, the frontage is allowed to be as low as 50 feet, provided that it widens to the spot that the width that's required when it gets to the front yard setback of the house. So the result of a pie-shaped lot is a very small front yard. I think the walkway that the applicant's representative is speaking of is alongside the house, and he said they flared out the driveway as it got toward the front of the house so that they could meet up with the walkway when exiting the car. That wouldn't be a walkway that would be calculated out of front yard occupancy, if that's what you mean, because it's alongside the house, correct?
Correct.
I think rather the more important consideration is the denominator in this case, which is the front yard area from which you generate the 40% permitted for a driveway, is very small. So in order for that to be, it looks like you, basically it's a 4-car driveway, it exceeds the 40%. It would only come up if they built a pool that they needed to CO like the applicant is doing. The driveway, if their driveways, do you think this driveway existed prior to, it's existed prior to 06? What you're
Yes.
saying is they just flared it out a little bit to meet that sidewalk alongside the house?
Yes. And like I said, it's a 6% difference, which is a very small, based off the length of it. It exceeds it. It extends maybe 2.5, 3 feet. No, it didn't. It's straight on the opposite side. They only flared it out to the left to meet the sidewalk as shown by the picture. The survey that I submitted, it goes, basically goes straight, and then there's a sidewalk. So you're looking at a sidewalk, not the right of it with it. Yeah, that's how it was built originally with the curb cut. That's the way it was built originally. With the curb cut, if you look at the curb cut, it goes straight. Yeah, no. Realistically, I mean, On which walkway? I apologize. There's one on the left. Correct. Correct. The walkway? So that is included in the percentages, which is just a walkway, not a driveway. So that should not be considered in the percentages. Then. Correct. I believe it is, yes, because it's one continuous paved driveway and walkway. So if I have the surveyor state that is a walkway and that is at 4% of the frontage, that would fit within too. Okay. Correct. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Application number 264-23, Heidi Bereznicki. Permission to leave one-story addition 13.3 by 20, having rear yard of 17.6 feet instead of required 25 feet. Residence A District, west side of Wagstaff Lane, 125 feet north of Gorgo Lane, West Islip.
Good evening. I'm Leonard Bereznicki. This is my wife Heidi Bereznicki. We live at 40 Wagstaff Lane, West Islip. With regards to the addition, it's a covered porch, no walls whatsoever, no utilities of any kind. There's a pool right there. We have grandkids and just decided to have some a shade structure. So we went ahead with that. Didn't think that it was going to encroach on the setbacks.
No neighbors' homes right behind, and we sent in a picture showing that, and just really for shade purposes.
If we were to grant this application, would you agree never to impose?
Absolutely.
We've only been there, not even a year in the home. It's only Lenny and myself. Only the two of us live in the home. And the pool basically is for the grandkids at this point. So we don't plan on making it any larger. I don't feel the need to clean a big house.
So is that a yes? You'll agree not to?
We agree not to.
Good, sorry.
Yes. Any other questions from the floor? No. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this application?
So just to be clear, since if you're getting never to be enclosed, I think.
Correct,
It has no sides? Only,
No.
the only side it has is that up against the house?
correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
As the application's been granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Application number 265-23, Nihir Mondal. Permission to erect two-story dwelling having floor area ratio of 32% instead of permitted 25%, and entrance platform having height of 8.41 feet instead of permitted 3 feet. Residence B District, south side of Ard Street, 160 feet west of Denver Avenue, Bay Shore.
My name is Greg Satzinger. I'm the contractor for him on this rebuild. He had a fire in his house about 9 months ago. So look, Satzinger, GM Renovations. And so we have two situations there. The architect couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to try to handle it for him. And the first thing is the property size or the building lot size, right? Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. It's the we're looking for 32% instead of the 25. But if you look at other on the block, the one right next door, it's a 32.5. So we're looking for relief there, and the front elevation of the front door stoop area, which I have a picture of. I don't know if you have it. Just a slightly larger, yes, in the back. Nothing along the front side. What was the? That I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't they have two? The two front doors. Is that before the fire?
Yes, before the fire.
Don't build another front door in the,
No.
So is the new platform going to be any higher than the platform that we're looking at right there?
No, it's about the same size.
Because usually 6 by 6 by 6 is a permitted encroachment. And the reason for the mounding is actually was intentional because builders were able to mound the front yards and then include the lower space was just considered not livable space. So that would be called a raised ranch. So it's like an artificial mound.
So you're walking in the house and you're going up, there's stairs up and stairs down. So you need that height on that front door.
So are you going to put a full basement beneath this?
No basement, just first floor and second floor.
Okay.
It's on slab.
Yeah, I know it used to be. I just.
Yeah, same thing.
Deirdre, could you do us a favor? We seem to not have the CO in the file. Would you mind just pulling up the CO for the former house? We were trying to determine whether it was roughly the same size as the house that existed before.
Any other questions? Is anyone else who would like to be heard on this application?
The whole first floor was considered a site. Yeah.
All in favor? Aye. All right, application's great.
Thank you.
Application number 266-23, Eaton Simpson and Mendel Raphael. Two glasses. Permission to leave, semi-in-ground pool having side yard of 8.7 feet instead of required 14 feet. Pool equipment having side yard of 2.5 feet instead of required 6 feet. Patio having side yards of 0.7 feet and 1 foot instead of required 4 feet each. Driveway having side yards of 0.5 feet and 2.9 feet instead of required 4 feet each, and front yard occupancy of 81.3% instead of permitted 40%. Residence A District, north side of West Lakeland Street, 150 feet west of Duke Street, Bay Shore.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman of the Board. My name is Eaton Simpson, and this is Mendel Raphael, who reside at 27 West Lakeland Street, Bay Shore, New York.
Good afternoon. My name is Mendel Raphael. I don't know if you guys have the pictures, but I just want to explain everything since when I bought the house. So when I purchased the house, I had the picture with me, the way it was look like, and then I have 2 cars, and my partner have 1 car, and my mom, and we live like with family, cousins, and then we used to park 2 cars in the driveway. We bought the house with the driveway. I have the picture. It's a paved driveway, and then we used to park the other car in the street. And the way the house looked like, it's like there's a street right in front of the house, and there's one across the house. And then one day, 1 car was speeding, and then he went to the car we parked right in front of the house. And then after that happened, I called the company. I put fence in front, and I was like, it was a little bit busy, the street too, sometime when all the cars was in the street. And for the respect of my neighbors, because we're all family in the area, and then I called another company, and then we concrete the front where you can see all the grass. And no, before that, I put the fence, and then you can see I did a lot of work on the front. I put moss and gravel, make it look pretty because it's in the corner. It's not a corner, but it looked like in the corner. And after that, I have the picture of the car when the car get hit, and then I have the other pictures where we put the fence and concrete the front so that way we don't busy the street, and then if anything happens, so we don't have to get car crash or car go straight to the house. And we have all the pictures. And when I received the letter about someone with a complaint about my front yard concrete, the reason I concrete the front yard is because I don't want to busy the street, and for the respect of my neighbors, because we all have family, we all watch on each other's, and then I have a couple of my neighbors with me. So I just want to know if I can get the left side of the house where you see the big concrete, not the pavers, if I can get a permit to make the spot become a legal parking. And even if you guys want me to put the line, like when you go to Walmart or Walgreens, the way they set up the parking, I don't mind to do that and get legal document for it. So when I came here, so I didn't know to do it if I need to have a permit. That's why I didn't go from the beginning to get a permit for it.
right now you've got 80,
That's for the front yard. And then for the pool, I called a company that called Border Street Pool to get the pool done. They came in and then they went online with the code of Bay Shores on town of Islip. They said the pool had to be 6 feet from the fence. I said, okay, let's make it 8 feet because I just want to make everything a little bit more than what they asked. And then they set up the pool for me. I don't know nothing about setting a pool. And then now, when I had to do the new survey, because I had a problem with the front, I said, you know what, let me just put the pool legally. And then I called a company to set up everything for me, the engineer. That's when they find out the pool has to be 14 feet, but the pool is 8 feet. But my neighbor don't have no problem with me. If you can see on the satellite, we have the same basketball court. We wash on his order with all our family in the area. Yes. And then there's something called patio. That's in the letter too. So that patio is in my right side neighbors. Between my land and my neighbors is only shed and trees that's there. So my neighbor said he don't have any problem because I only keep the house clean, make it look good in the area, and then they don't have any problem with me.
I concur with Mr. Sullivan. What I like.
Yeah, from the but I don't know if you guys have the picture too, but I did print and give it to the town. So when you see the left side of the house where they have the big concrete, that concrete is like 43%. That's the one I wanna know if I can get a permit to make the spot become a parking. I don't have any problem to cut it now and go from A to Z to get a permit for it, and then after that we concrete. But it's gonna be almost the same thing if I can get allowed to just leave it the way it is and run to get the permit legally, and I don't have any problem to do that as well, because that's the only big part that makes the front become 81%.
yeah, you requested 80%. You have to cut that down to 42%.
That's actually, if you were sitting here, you learn nothing else than 42%. And we do that consistently since they changed the law from 40 to 35 to 40. We've been granting 42. And the only way we can be fair is to make sure we grant the same each applicant. Unless there's some overriding, and somebody's tried that and you said no.
Oh no, I'm not in a rush. Actually, if I can get everything legally, that would be great for me. Yes, I will be happy.
Dan, why don't you tell the applicants what you think the issue is? The pool, I think
Or do you want me to, if you see the picture, the left side, the big part, if I have to cut it and then just go from A to Z to the town to see if I can get this become a permit. But
What
if they
Mr.
have
Sullivan's suggestion is that you take an adjournment and you meet with Theodore with the planning department.
Okay.
Go through your application with her and modify whatever needs to be modified, and then you come back and present again.
Yeah, we can do that.
For the front or for the whole application?
For the whole application.
We're not gonna decide everything, but we give more time to discuss it with the chairman. Or come back with a notification.
Okay.
All right, so we'll grant an adjournment. All right? Motion for it.
Unless you want to.
No, we need to put the date up.
Yeah. Well, he's motivated to close the pool tournament. It's May 20th. You know what? Let's go on there. June 6th.
So we'll give you an adjournment until June 6th. So in between now and then, you'll meet with theater and planning to just hand in your business card.
Okay.
You can discuss the application with her, and you can come back on June 6th with a modified application.
We also speak to an ex-collateral professional and deal with the town and districts all the time. And that will give you the June 6th. Speak to the appropriate side.
Thank you.
Make a motion to turn the application to June 6th.
All right, second? Ed?
Yep.
Second, all right. Application's been adjourned.
Thank you.
Application number 267-23, Sebastian Lankowicz and Jacqueline Brandt. Permission to leave in-ground pool having rear yard of 8 feet instead of required 14 feet. Residence A District, east side of Campbell Lane, 501.5 feet north of Doris Place, East Islip.
Good evening, I'm Sebastian Lankowitz from 63 Campbell Lane, precisely. I'm asking permission to leave the rear yard of the pool 8 feet. I believe there's a precedent of 7 feet for this home. So I'm asking for 8. Pretty please.
Do you have a precedent?
There's 2 cases that were
It was finished early summer last year.
With a permit.
Correct. What happened was the original survey showed my property line, in this area, and then I got a different survey company. I have both copies of the original survey and the new one, and I lost about 1.5 feet of the rear property. So that kind of messed everything up, and that's kind of why I'm here. Nothing's been moved. We did the plans based on the original survey, so we thought we were right on the money, and we would have been, but the new survey doesn't reflect that, unfortunately.
Any motion?
Grant the application.
Second.
All in favor? The application's been granted.
Thank you very much.
The next application, number 268-23, Best of Long Island LLC, has been adjourned to April 25th. Is there anybody here in that application? Application number 269-23, Darshanan and Anjani Hiralal. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Code Section 68-602 to leave roofline alteration having front yard of 37.4 feet and portico having front yard of 34.1 feet instead of required 40 feet each, and second story roofed over deck, all having floor area ratio of 30.04% instead of permitted 25%. To leave driveway having side yard of 2 feet instead of required 4 feet and front yard occupancy of 45% instead of permitted 40%. Residence A District, east side of Prospect Street, 150 feet south of Woodland Avenue, Central Islip.
Good evening. Thomas Bloor, the architect for the project, 60 Carlton Avenue, Suite 202, Islip Terrace, New York, 11752. The intent of this application is to establish an accessory apartment as well as legalize and maintain some roofline modifications they made to the existing home. We're requesting a front yard setback of 37.4 feet. That is to the existing bay window, and 34.1 feet to a newly constructed portico that does exist now, instead of the permitted 40 feet. The home is an existing high ranch. It's the exact same setbacks the home always had as far as that bay window. It's just a brand new roof at a steeper pitch over the existing dwelling. As far as the FAR, we're requesting 30.04% instead of the permitted 25%. And then we have the driveway. We're requesting a side yard setback of 2 feet instead of the permitted 4 feet. The driveway is lined with raised Belgian block. It does not pitch towards the neighbor's yard. And then we lastly have the front yard lot coverage of 45% instead of the permitted 40%. And I'd be happy to amend that application to 42%. And if the board should have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah, I heard you.
Why don't you make it 30? That makes it easier for us. Otherwise, it just starts creeping up. And you get zoning.
Yeah, understood.
Whose idea was it to round it out to the 1,000?
Me being
Not
super
a good idea,
technical.
Tom. Not a good idea.
It's the 100th, not 1,000.
If he rounds it to the 10th, which I think you can do.
Right, I can round that down to 30.0, right?
Yeah.
Or 100.
Or not.
What'd you say?
I said or not, because all he has to do is choose to show it to the 10th, not the 1,000th, and then he would have been at 30%.
Okay, there you go. This way, or still.
It's 30.0%.
Decision will lose
Correct.
30%.
30.0.
And he's agreed to amend it to 42% on the front yard.
Correct.
Anybody else like to be heard on this application? Any other questions from the board?
No.
I'll make a motion that we deny so much of the application seeking 30.04 FAR and 30.00. And similarly, deny so much of the application seeking for not to exceed 45%, yet grant 42% and grant the remainder of the application.
All in favor?
Aye.
For a period of,
Application's
and
been granted.
for a period of 3
I'm sorry, yes.
Three years.
for a period of 3 years. Sorry.
Understood. Thanks. Have a great evening.
Application number 270-23, No Argueta. Permission to establish legal nonconforming use of attached garage conversion to livable space and to leave driveway having width of 23 feet instead of permitted 18 feet. Residential redevelopment district, north side of Cedar Street, 80 feet west of McKinney Avenue, Central Islip.
Good evening. My name is Victor Campos. I'm here on behalf of No Argueta, the homeowner. My office is at 94 West Main Street, Suite 202, Bayshore. Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
So, please. I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Victor Campos. Yes.
You are here to establish a legal non-conforming use.
That's correct.
That's puts us in a position at time. What proof do you have, and what's the year we have to go back to establish on 2012? So what proof do you have that this was at the legal non-conforming at least 2012?
My understanding is that this garage conversion was constructed 14 years ago.
Okay, that's interesting understanding. That's fine, but we need proof. What proof do you have?
I personally don't have any proof at this time. I might be able to provide the board some proof, but I don't have any right now.
Now is time.
I understand.
I guess if you say you'd like an adjournment.
No. I'm sorry, Mr. Campos, we don't have you as a representative on the file, so we worked carefully. You, welcome, we're happy you're here, but we worked carefully with an expediter and explained very carefully that they needed to submit 3 affidavits stating knowledge prior to 2012, which they did.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes, they did. And we also explained that there needs to be also an individual for cross-examination present at the hearing, which I think she's over your left shoulder. And then that person was likely one of the affiants that we have in the file.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I was retained this afternoon.
He was retained this
The
afternoon.
architect couldn't make it, so I was asked.
Okay.
Ma'am, would you like to be heard on this application? Please step up and state your name and address, please.
I'm Versary Hill, and I reside at 22 Cedar Street, Central Islip. My neighbor is Noah Alberto, and he is trying to convert his garage for living space. Hill, Hill, yes. So I'm here for him.
Ms. Hill,
Yes,
how long have you been aware of this converted garage?
well, my neighbor, and I guess it's been there, it's there. He wanted for living quarters, and I live next door to him, and he's a good neighbor, no trouble or anything like that. And I reside at my house next month. I'll be there 60 years.
60?
60. I am 80 years old.
How many?
80.
Wow.
Yes.
So
I have been there. So I guess I'm the oldest person on the block. And there's people. I have no qualms with anybody. They're very nice, and
can you tell us how long?
he been there 2005. He moved. Yeah, he moved there.
And how long have they been living in the converted garage?
It's not detached, it's attached.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't
so
say that. but
I'll give a little history to help out. So-
Why don't we just let her?
Okay, because you're thinking it's a detached garage, and it's attached.
Okay.
So I want to explain why there's a prohibition in the conversion of attached garages in the RRD.
I just thought I'd have a.
I know, okay, yeah, sure, sorry.
Before you give us the lecture.
It's not a lecture,
It's a learning experience.
That's a learning.
I just sense it going somewhere.
Could you tell us how long you know that somebody has been living in the attached garage, not detached?
It's their den.
I guess so. Maybe it's that. Then I haven't. I've talked to them and or everything. I don't say something if I have to know what I'm saying, because I want to be right with whatever. So they've been there for a long time. I guess a long time.
Okay.
Yeah. Excuse me? No, because listen, there was one person long ago. They moved there, and they moved to, I guess they moved to North Carolina or something like that. And then Noah and his family came after, so they've been there till 2005. No. Just him.
When you say a long time, you give 60
Oh,
years is a
let me
long
see.
time.
I thought out maybe 15 years, 20 years. I don't know. I can't. I know that he's always keeping. He's always fixing up the place. Look very nice, and I think people complain. I don't know.
So overall, you're fine with everything that's
Excuse me?
Overall, you're fine with everything they want to do? You're fine with it?
Oh yeah, sure. I am. Of course I am. I wouldn't have been here.
Some people come
They
to
do their work. Yeah, I try to live on up and up. No cry. I do. 80 years old. I do what I do.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
You want to stay on the up and up and no sense changing
That's
that,
right. No changing.
You want to set it straight?
Deirdre, can you zoom out a second? I know you are, but It's not a variance. So this is the RRD. So as you can see, there's some attached housing. There's some newer houses like the subject parcel. And then there's a house like Ms. Hill's house, which has been there for 60 years since, or maybe more, right? Since this neighborhood was known as Carlton Park, right?
That's right.
That's right. And now Carlton Park was largely demolished and some of the older houses still remain. Yours is one of them.
The town redid my house.
And in 1992, the planning board adopted it as College Woods.
Right.
College Woods has a lot of restrictions. One of the restrictions is the houses can't be rented. Another was an attempt to try to allow the attached garages to be used for parking spaces so that there wouldn't be a problem with parking on the street. So that's why the prohibition on the conversion of attached garages came to be.
Thank you, Mary.
You're
That was
welcome.
most
I thought you'd be
informative.
interested in the
No,
development of this area.
I think we got some learning experience.
Yeah, you should get them.
Can I say that again?
No, you should, because if this is all learning.
This is Vanessa. Before the town made changes,
No, College Woods came to be in the early 90s. This is the redevelopment of Central Islip State Hospital. Your office is not far, right? Maybe Deirdre can zoom out a little further.
Dan Gregson.
There you go. Yep. So, Mr. Campos, what do we get for our retainer?
He's an old client.
Just kidding.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this application? Yes, please step forward.
Good evening, board members. My name is Alfonso Ochoa. It's my wife, Christy Ochoa. Ochoa. We live in College Woods. Finally paid the house off, the mortgage and everything. And so we've been there close to 27 years.
What's your address, sir?
162 McKinney Street. Now, I've seen the neighborhood grow, and it's great. It's a very nice neighborhood, very family oriented. And we assumed that, that the neighborhood was going to be for residential people and their families who could afford to live there. On that road in College Woods, there's two entrances basically, one on Cedar and one on Smith Street. McKinney runs the whole length, north and south. Cedar has tons of traffic, tons of cars. Now, I don't know the resident that lives, at 24 Cedar Street, but they've done a lot of work to their house. They've totally took out their front lawn to put in parking space for their trucks. I think they run a business, and it's pretty dubious that that the owners couldn't be here to explain their situation for a family member to be living down there. These houses were built, for families, and that was an attached garage meant for parking and not for people to be living in. Unfortunately, I don't know why it couldn't be it explaining why he wants this. After he's done all this work, I think he's put solar panels on, flattened out the front yard, put a sign up on his garage saying that it's a non-operable door, and there's tons of traffic, and it's a blind corner. It's not really blind, but it's on a hill. It goes up onto McKinney. So it's basically, there's a lot of traffic, you're gonna stop. And the Smith Street, Cedar is just, you make the left, there's no stop sign there. So, there's a lot of traffic in that area. So that's my concerns, my thing is illegal tenants, because it was like, they don't take care of their properties or anything. And, I don't know if getting a lawyer down here or whoever to explain the situation is fine. It's their every right to do that, but it would have been nice to see the homeowners come down here and explain the situation.
I just wanted to discuss the traffic on Cedar Street because you had mentioned about the attached garage being there for the parking. I don't know if you can see, I don't know if that was taken when there was parking on the street, but on McKinney Street where we are, the townhouses are just on one side of the street. And our driveways, they're all small. They don't fit much. So if we have to park, someone has to park on the opposite side of the street, there's nobody's townhouse there. On Cedar Street, there are townhouses on both sides of the street. So if people don't fit in the driveway, they overflow. Usually they park up and down tightly up and down the street. So it's gotten to the point where if you want to go down the street, two cars cannot pass each other. And it's a long street. So you can't see if the person at the end is waving you to go. So if you both start going at the same time, one of you has to back up on the street because you cannot pass each other. So the traffic situation is really, it's the busiest street in the whole development. It's hard to get through. And yeah. Yes.
I'm trying to follow the traffic.
Yeah.
What they're saying is the non-conforming use is grandfathered.
Uh-huh.
So they're saying the house and the garage was used prior to 2012 as a deck. So, pardon?
I'm sorry, I stand corrected. I noticed the affidavit said bedroom.
There's a bedroom.
Okay.
That's what I thought, but you said den, so. No. So the question is, how will that increase traffic? I don't think that has anything, I mean, there may be a traffic problem, but this particular application is not going to increase traffic unless.
Well, if they can't use their garage, they already have a passenger car, at least one passenger car in their driveway. And I'm assuming the reason why it was expanded is because they have two work trucks, very large work trucks in the driveway. So if they already people who just have two cars in the townhouses can't fit them, they're all parking on the street. We all have to park on the street.
What they're saying
Yeah.
is that they've been using it since before the code change. Imagine your house,
Uh-huh.
okay? Let's say it's on quarter acre.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Imagine if this year the town passed a code that said all those houses, including yours, have to be on an acre. And say, but we predated the code. We have to grant to prove that it predated the code. They get the right to predate the code, because it'd be unfair to superimpose a code such as that on you.
So it was always legal for them to use the garage as a den or a
Prior to
bedroom or whatever?
2012. So
Okay.
what they did is their obligation, their burden is to prove that it was used as a den prior to 2012.
Okay.
And they,
Bedroom,
no,
sorry, my fault.
Bedroom.
as a bedroom, and which is not an unusual thing. People converting garages. So what they've done is they've given us 3 sworn affidavits, and this young lady gave us live testimony that she knows it and it's been there for a long time. And so it's not as though we're giving them something they're not entitled to. They predate the code.
Okay.
Just like if they said, if the town said, you folks now have to leave, have to have an acre.
Right.
Otherwise, you have to get out and they're gonna knock down your home and say, wait a while. Here's 3 affidavits, and you would testify, you very eloquent, say, listen, we moved here 27 years ago. We predate the code. You have to say, you're right. That's what this application is about.
Okay, and the driveway also, the extra, what is it, 5 feet on the
You're right.
driveway?
That's an area variance, so the board has discretion on that.
Okay, because they have the 2 work trucks and at least 1 passenger vehicle in the driveway.
So the RRD does restrict driveways to 18 foot and
Right,
width.
so that's something that they have to comply with.
Okay.
My concern is the making it into a legal bedroom or.
What they're saying is it is a bedroom.
It's been a bedroom prior to the coaching.
Prior to the code change, when was it, 2012?
2012.
This community's been built in 1994 with these conditions that you wouldn't be renting anything out.
They're not renting it out.
That's not before us, but if you find that they're violating the code, then call code enforcement. That's absolutely all right, and they'll investigate.
Okay.
That's not, we're not code enforcement.
Okay.
You don't want to give us guns and
Okay.
All right, so
Thank you.
we just want to say that. Thank you very
No,
much.
sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Campos, I think we've addressed the legal non-conforming use. What about the width of the driveway?
Well, my client is asking for permission to have it at 23 feet instead of 18 feet. That's, if the town's concern is about vehicles or large vehicles, perhaps the town could impose restrictions on whatever it has to impose. I'd have to ask my client.
Yeah, if we don't grant it, then.
I mean, obviously, yeah.
So is anyone else like to be heard on this application? No? Any other questions? Motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion that we, the board has determined that the applicant has sustained the burden in establishing a legal non-conforming use of the attached garage as a bedroom.
It's a livable space.
Livable space, and deny some of the application seeking 19 feet instead of 18 feet for the driveway.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the modified application's been granted.
All right, thank you.
And the driveway's been,
Yeah, the driveway has not been approved.
the next application, number 271-23, has also been adjourned. Is there anybody on that application of Daniela Munoz? Okay. Application number 272-23, Giovanni and Adrian Di Stefano. Permission to erect second-story addition, leaving rear yard of 16 feet instead of required 25 feet, and floor area ratio of 30.1% instead of permitted 25%. Residence AA District, 278 Cluster, southeast side of Richmore Drive, 129.81 feet south of Jewel Bay Drive. Say.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Larry Buscemi for Select Permits, P.O. Box 679, Mount Sinai, New York, agent for the homeowner.
Giovanni Di Stefano, 26 Richmond Drive.
Good evening. This is an application for a proposed structure. It's actually more than one proposed structure, which in the aggregate have an FAR that comes to 30.1. And under the rules of rounding, we are again down to 30. But just to put this into perspective, 0.1% of this property comes out to 13 square feet, which is less than half the size of a piece of plywood. So it's not a big ask. I know there's precedent, but, and you're concerned about the slippery slope, but, you know, in the same respect, it's a very minor difference. As far as the setback of the proposed second story, it's basically in line with the existing home with a small cantilever. And this is a very unusually shaped piece of property, very long and thin like me. And it's very difficult to do anything that would not violate some setback. So if the board has any questions.
First being that it's 16 feet rear instead of 25.
Daniela, she got adjourned. You good?
Doesn't it just exacerbate an already tenuous situation?
Or it continues an existing situation.
But it doesn't continue, it's adding a second floor.
That is,
I mean, if you went back, like we always see, extra 3 feet, okay, yeah. But this is putting a whole second floor, and we're always concerned, I know it was, so the Judge Messina, also concerned that you're looking into the neighbor's yard, mine too, and I'm looking at that. And wouldn't that be right into the yard when it's been so close?
Well, the reality is that there's already a second story on part of the house. So I'm not aware if, do you folks have the site plan? I know I turned some in. If not, I have extra copies.
I don't have it.
No,
Oh,
we
the
just have
plot
a
plan?
survey.
Plot plan.
Plot plan.
Oh, the plot.
Excuse me, plot plan.
You're calling it a den, so that-
I know.
So that's the problem. Also, the 30.1. We like round numbers. It's very elementary in our math. Because we know what 30.1 means next week.
This is
That's something I think they should do. That's around here. But
Right.
I'm not saying I'm on board with the second floor that close to the up. I'm just.
the homeowner would like to speak.
If I can interject for a moment, if you look to the west of me, my neighbor has a second story rear porch, as a matter of fact. Probably just as close to the property line.
So that's the east.
Is that there via grant of the zoning board? I mean, if you just build it and you built it and it's there illegally, that doesn't give you really much.
I can't speak on what my neighbor was granted, but
I mean,
I-
that means that's significant to us in that it can help you. If we granted that, then it's difficult for us to deny it to you. If we didn't grant it, and it just kind of sprung up without benefit of permit, then that doesn't orbit to the benefit. It's not that legal. And then what we'll do is, they'll let's say granted it, now I want it. And that's how neighborhoods just overgrow the land.
I think some of the
Theodore,
point
hold on one
is
second.
that
If we could just have Theodore tell us about the other piece. Is there any other precedent in the area?
I was just going to say, whether they're on a patio or they're in a structure, they're still looking into the other. So the theory of looking into another person's house is going to hold true. In fact, you spend more time looking out of a patio than you do out of a window. So there is that precedent.
And may I also say one more thing? The way the property is set up, if you can see, like, we plan on having windows overlooking our backyard, which is really our side yard towards the pool. And if I may, my style of home is called a splanch. Adding an addition to the single story part of the splanch is consistent with the neighborhood. In fact, across the street from me, to the west, you could see the reverse gable roof line, which is a second story structure over the original single story.
They have these.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying as far as the style of home and yeah, and that's just one, but there's several examples. And also if I may, I have a big family. I have 4 daughters between the ages of 6 and 11. So the need for space is crucial. I don't know if you heard. I have 4 daughters between 6 and 11, and they're just growing. Currently,
The other people have 5
oh, okay. I'm just saying that's just my family. But that's our
I had 5 daughters.
I had to stop at 4, and my heart's full. And but becurrently, I have twin daughters. They're the oldest 2, and they share a room. So we'd like to actually start to separate them from teenagers. Thank you.
And to really add any living space to this house is going to violate some setback somewhere.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard on this application with or without notice? Any other questions from the board?
No.
No?
Second.
All in favor? So
Thank you.
modified
Have a great night.
Thank you. Work on that fifth order, maybe we'll give you that.
Application number 273-23. When's that class?
They don't teach that?
John Perry Son. Permission to leave two additions, 12.6 by 20.3 and 10 by 15.1, having side yards of 1.4 feet and 3.2 feet instead of required 14 feet each, and total side yards of 4.6 feet instead of required 28 feet. Residence A District, north side of Hickory Place, 142 feet west of Lincoln Boulevard, Bay Shore.
Hello, my name's Frank Cherry. My address is 2570 Hempstead Turnpike, East Meadow. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, John Parison, Chery. There are two additions that existed when my client obtained the house, approximately 2017. Hickory Place is a short, dead-end street. On the west side, my client has a garage extension that butts up against the neighbor's stockade, 6-foot stockade fence. The neighbor on that side, on the west side, his house faces away on another street. So, and on the other side, there is an office space about 10 by 15 that was built in the side yard. Both houses on the adjoining sides face away so that their houses do not come in proximity to his. To remove either one of those would be a major expense to Mr. Parison. We would ask the application be granted.
Mr. Cherry, if we were to grant this application, we basically throw the code into place out there. And it requires 14 feet, and you have 1.4. That's an 88% relaxation, and 3.2. And total side yards of 4.6 instead of 28. If we were to grant it, we just throw the code out. I don't think this is grantable on either side. I mean, if somebody had 13.5 instead of 14, 12, 11.6, we see that. 1.6, I mean, the code would mean nothing.
I'm curious because the client built this house in 2017, right?
I believe so, Your Honor.
They must have known that the issue existed before they built the house. And when was it built? Feel bad about the expense of denying this and not even remove these additions that don't have permits. When they built the house, they must have been aware. They should have been aware. If somebody in the know should have made them aware of that.
I mean, when they drive around the neighborhood and they see it's otherwise pretty close to conforming, and then they see these additions go right to the edge of the property.
When were the additions built?
I'm sorry?
When were the additions built?
My client believes they were built approximately 15 years before he obtained the house.
As Mr. Sullivan was saying, before they took title. Did they get a mortgage on this house?
Yes, he does.
These issues have to come to the forefront. They must have known when they purchased this house that these additions were not legal.
Wouldn't the bank pick it up?
Yes.
I do not know. My hearing's is faltering, I'm sorry.
Couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Um,
Did you do the closing on the top?
I did not. I did not. I just really got involved yesterday.
Right.
But they should have known that these were not legal when they purchased this house.
And it also, I'm looking at the photograph, it's not even as though it looked like it was part of the house. I mean, it's,
The garage extension doesn't appear to be enclosed entirely. I might say it more in the nature of a carport, but I'm not sure that that's is actually a legal
No,
term.
it's not a carport because it's closed.
Yes, closed.
You
It's
couldn't
partially
drive-
enclosed.
You'd have to drive through the wall. People have done that.
I believe it's enclosed in the back.
You know, this happens occasionally in front of the court, but I feel bad. But, you know, they should have went into this closing before this happened. No one- What brought you here today? Why all of a sudden they want to leave?
There's a code enforcement matter pending in district court. In the defense, I would again point out that at least on the west side, that there is a 6-foot fence that really blocks the structure off from the neighbor's house almost entirely to where it could not really impinge upon their use of their house.
Is there anyone else here that would like to be heard on this application? All in favor, denial? I'm sorry, sir, the application's been denied.
Thank you for your time.
Application number 274-23, Angela and Joseph Bonfiglio. Permission to erect one-story addition, 16.7 by 17.5, leaving side yard of 2.22 feet instead of required 14 feet, and total side yards of 21.95 feet instead of required 28 feet. Residence B District, south side of Iroquois Street, 520 feet west of Parkway Boulevard, Ronkonkoma.
Good evening, Christina Bravin, Morano Expediting, 2938 Hempstead Turnpike, Levittown, agent for the applicant. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we're requesting permission for a one-story addition on the rear of this 1930s bungalow. It's currently holding 1.7 feet at its closest point in the front of the house and a combined side yard of 20.3 feet. So the plan is just to extend the existing foundation line in the rear, which currently holds 2.2. And as they go further back into the yard, about 15 feet, 16 feet for the addition. It'll hold, I think, 2.5 at the furthest.
I guess you were here for the last penultimate application. I know that application. How can you grant 1.7?
So 1.7 is what the house is currently holding.
I know, but you want to extend it another 16 feet. I understand it's probably an old bungalow.
Yeah, 1930s, there's no COs, it predates the code. It's about 500 square feet living space. It's extremely small.
Nobody's taking away from them, but then to continue it, you're not even touching it. That's a, too all of the water to have. Continue 1.7. That's.
It's 2.2 for the record, but the house is holding 1.7 in front. That's okay. Just want to make sure it's recorded correctly. So, I mean, normally because the house itself holds a setback, it's why we, came with the application. We're not just requesting it out of the clear blue sky. And the neighbors don't have any issue with it whatsoever.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on the app? Can you please come up, sir?
Yeah, I'm one of those neighbors.
Do you have a name on the-
Yeah, I'm going to give it to you. Thomas Stocks. I live at 204 Iroquois, which is adjacent to the property in question.
So you have no opposition to this? You have everything?
No, I'm not. I have opposition.
Oh.
You do have
STOCKS. Yeah, I live next to the property. I've been a homeowner there for 30 years. The property in question next door, it didn't have a CO up until 2017. Was granted a variance in 2017 for the existing construction. So at that time, the CO application had 1.8 feet from my property line, not 2.2. They're looking to do an extension on the existing construction. As you noted, it's 2.2 feet is what they're claiming, and they want to go back along my property line, 2 feet from my property line, not the required 14 feet. So, I just think that that's an issue for me.
Okay, he informed us he spoke to the neighbor and that there was no issue. He went over the project. So maybe he was referring to the other side. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I was told. Oh, the homeowner told our office that he did speak to the neighbor, so perhaps he didn't speak to the neighbor, the most affected neighbor. I'm just relaying what I was told. He did speak to the neighbor and they didn't have an issue with the project. Very possible. I'm just letting you know what I was told. Oh, no, you can make a decision. That's fine. Thank you. Have a good night.
Permission to install additional facial sign where only 3 are permitted, having sign area of 362.58 square feet instead of permitted 16 square feet, and height of 57 feet instead of permitted 12 feet. Downtown Development District, northwest corner of East Main Street and North Montgomery Avenue, Bayshore.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Lydia Jimenez, all-in permits, 71 Hanrahan Avenue, Farmingville, New York, 01738. JIMENEZ. Today, we are requesting a hospital identification sign for South Shore University Hospital, Northwell Health at 301 East Main Street. The new Intimate Family Campus sign is a wall-mounted LED illuminated sign at 362.58 square feet in area, with the outermost perimeter dimensions at 36 feet by 6 foot 3 inches. The sign is proposed to be erected at an overall height of 57 feet. The sign will be mounted utilizing 2-inch by 2-inch aluminum tube mounting rails. We are requesting the size today due to the placement of the new Intimate Family Campus wing on the bracket building. The sign will be placed facing the parking lot and a nature buffer that resides between the hospital campus and any residential units. In granting approval to this variance request, there will be no undesirable change produced in the character of the neighborhood or create a detriment to the nearby properties. The requested area variance is not substantial due to the size of the property, and the wall area of the signage will be located. And the proposed variance will not create any adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. Thank you for your consideration. I did not. No, I personally did not. Somebody did. I was not given any feedback. The sign company is here. Yes, they will. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Second.
Second from Ed.
Okay,
All
we
in
have.
favor? Granted.
We have two-family use onlys to renew for a period of 3 years.
Get a motion to approve those?
Motion. Second.
Seconded from Will, Bill, I mean, and
Motion McCabe, second Mr. Wexler.
all in favor?
And we have 4 decisions that were reserved to read into the record. Pass out, yeah, cheat sheets. There we go. Oh, now, Mr. Nicolia, as you know, wasn't able to remain with us for the evening. So you can't because you were together, so I'm going to suggest that.
Okay, I'll be Chris Nicolia.
Okay. Application number 913-22, Darrell and Teresa Tompkin. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated April 11, 2023, the application is denied with regard to the 6-foot fence, granted permission to maintain the water feature. On motion of,
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
oh, you know what? Forget it. I'm sorry, that doesn't carry. It's a 2022 case, and there's not 3 members present.
We need him to do it. No, you're right. Okay.
We'll have to
Get him
do,
on the phone?
nope, we'll do it in 2 weeks.
New guys.
That means you can only do
Killing
one.
us.
No,
This is
these
21,
are all
this
you
is
guys.
24.
No, that was held over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you heard these.
Oh, yeah, right.
So why is it?
Maybe that's when they apply.
They also got adjourned. They didn't show. Application number 7-23, Segundo Sordo and Lucia Escobar. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated April 11, 2023, the application is denied permission to leave the 1-story addition, granted permission to leave the roofed-over porch. On,
Motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Granted, denied and granted as read in by a vote of 4-0. Application number 340-21, West Adams Equity, Inc. In accordance with a proposed written decision dated April 11, 2023, the application is denied permission to reconstruct the detached garage, denied front yard occupancy of 55%. However, granted permission to maintain front yard occupancy not to exceed 42%. On motion of
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
application number 877-22, Christina and Ryan Pembroke. In accordance with a proposed written decision dated April 11, 2023, the application is granted. On motion of
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. That's a wrap.